Hello and welcome to NLG Talks. What a great day today we have, and today we are going to speak on some methodologies like Lean, Six Sigma, and theory of constraints, some business transformation strategies. So we were having this episode especially dedicated with gold professionals out there, and today we have Akshat Agrawal who is joining us from gold before going into the intro sessions, let me start by mentioning some books which you can read on this topic. Uh, the Toyota Way: 14 Management Principles from the World's Greatest Manufacturer by Jeffrey Liker. This book provides deep insights into Toyota's production system, which is the foundation of lean thinking. Then another book is Lean Thinking: Banish Waste and Create Wealth in Your Corporation by James P. Womack and Daniel T. Jones. A cornerstone in lean literature, this book outlines the five principles of lean thinking. So these are some books which you can read on lean and Six Sigma and theory of constraints. I would suggest Akshat also to refer some books on TOC if you have any details onto it as well. Uh, we are going to speak on this subject. It's very crucial to understand this subject because organizations these days are increasingly turning to transformation strategies, and minimization of waste is very much in picture, and enhancing overall performance is also considered to be one of the primary targets by increasing efficiency. And Organizations these days use a lot of techniques, and we are going to discuss about some of the techniques today. One would be lean management and Six Sigma, and some parts of theory of constraints as well. Uh, before starting before starting today's podcast, let me start by defining uh, lean management. As per Business Map, lean management is a systematic approach to optimizing efficiency by minimizing waste. And as per ASQ, Six Sigma is a method that provides organization tools to improve the capability of their business process. Today, we are joined in by Akshat Agrawal, Consulting Engagement Director and Head of Manufacturing Practice and from Goldrat Consulting. Hello to Akshat. Good evening to you.
Hi, Jason. Good evening. Good evening.
Fantastic. Also, we are joined in by a permanent panelist, Eshwar Padmanabhan, certified logistic professional and a leader in the supply chain industry. Good evening, Eshwar. How are you?
Good evening, Jason. Doing good, thank you. How are you?
Amazing. And I hope we are all set for today's podcast. And today we are going to dig in deep and understand what is Lean Six Sigma and theory of constraints. So the first question to Akshat: what is Lean, Six Sigma, and theory of constraints, and how do they differ in their approaches to business transformation?
Yeah, great question to start with, Jason, and a pretty elaborate question. Think there are many books written already on each of these topics. I would try and answer this from my practical experience.
Yeah.
So, idea of each of these body of knowledge, the way I see it, each of this is a body of knowledge with its own tools, techniques, methodologies. The idea of each of this is to improve the performance of the system as a whole, whatever system we are talking about, right? So we need to know what system we are working on, and we need to know what is the performance measures for these systems. For a profitable organization, it's making money, but it could be for a defense, it could be something else. For a hospital, it could be something else altogether. Right, so each of these body of knowledge helps in improving the system as a whole. Now we as a implementer have to understand which is the right tool to use in what situation. Instead of saying that blindly I only know lean and hence I only implement lean. Okay, it's more about these are the tools which we all know, which we all should know as
Right.
a transformational agent, and then implement it. Now, each of these has very subtle differences, which I'll try to touch upon instead of going too much in detail.
Yeah.
As you said, the approach of lean is to improve a process,
Yeah.
right? By reducing the waste. The main focus is on reducing the waste for lean. And they have tools like 5S, Kaizen, Kanban, and all these tools, VSM. Now, for Six Sigma, the main focus is reducing the process variability, reducing the defects, improving the process efficiency, process quality. And then they use tools like SPCs, statistical process controls, or DMAC, and things like that, right? TOC also tries to improve the system's performance, but the approach is to know what is the leverage point within the system. Okay, within the system there can be many improvement points, but then you should know what is the main point which is like a leverage. If you work on that, which we call it constraint, then the performance of the system will overall improve significantly. Okay, so these are the different approaches. That's how it differs to. Now, while the approach is different, the philosophy behind it, there's a very subtle difference which I found in the philosophy. Lean and Six Sigma inherently believes that the variability should be reduced. Okay, variability can be reduced, which means that, I mean, the system typically works very well when the life cycle of a product in any organization is very long, or the number of varieties in the products that they have is very low. Like a Model T, only one black color car. Or when Toyota started, the demand was much stable for the car. They know how much they can produce and how much the market will consume. These days, the variability is much higher. The life cycles are reducing. More and more customizations happening. So it's difficult to control the variability, and that's why TOC comes up with a belief that it's no point in controlling the variability, but we need to build the system to manage the variability, or deal with the variability by building buffers at the right places.
Yeah.
So that's the philosophy of the TOC. That's where it comes in. And then there is this differences what I saw in practical implementations. What's happening is, when you see a typical Lean or Six Sigma implementation, they typically find one area within the system and works on that. Like, let's say production, one machine, let's implement Six Sigma there. Or, in transportation, let's implement Lean methodologies. Or warehousing, let's implement. Now, reducing waste inherently gets converted into reducing cost.
Yeah.
That's where I see many problems start. So you end up improving the efficiencies or by reducing the cost in that particular area. But since we do not have a system level view, or often an implementation does not have a system level view, so an improvement in one area may end up having a negative effect on the whole system. Right, so it has to be more like the set of tools which we know we can use, but if we do not have a view of the system as a whole and why each tool works, implementing it blindly may lead to negative effects.
Right.
And
Right.
I have seen that in many implementations where organizations are trying to implement each of it independently. And then while the implementation team will say we have done a great job, but then it may not really have effect on the business, or it may also have sometimes negative effect.
Yeah. Eshwar, you want to add something here?
No, I echo with Akshat's point, but just to give, like, these are all powerful methodologies, Lean or Six Sigma or theory of constraints. These are powerful methodologies, and many businesses have transformed their business in various different ways. But the most important thing is how each of the methodology has got a different kind of a unique focus and an approach. And now when we talk about lean, it is more focusing on elimination of waste, improving your efficiency, and streamlining your processes. And it also emphasizes that what kind of a value creation it is required for customers while minimizing your resources, time, and cost. But whereas the goal is to create smoother, faster workflows and to remove anything that doesn't actually add value. So that's the significance of lean. But when it comes to Six Sigma, it's all about improving by reducing your defects. Akshat beautifully put it that on the variations that we are able to see beautiful examples of that white and black and all that thing. In the processes, it uses data driven techniques. The most important thing in Six Sigma is how good is the quality of the data that you have, and with the usage of the data driven techniques and the various statistical tools or analysis, you can identify and eliminate those kind of errors and aiming to near perfect outcomes, or striving to get that 3.4 defects per million opportunities. We can see how The airline industry is a classic example for that. And then when it comes to theory of constraints, I mean, I completely echo Akshat's voice on it. It centers on identifying and addressing the single most significant bottleneck or the constraint in the process, and its focuses is on improving that constraint to unlock greater overall performance. That's the reason you get exponential difference, or you can see that overall performance and optimize on that entire system. So while Lean talks about efficiency and waste reduction, Six Sigma aims for precision and quality, and TOC focuses on optimizing the limiting factor that hinders your performance. Together, these methodologies offer different but are complementary to the business transformation. That's how I look at it. Thank you.
Now, taking uh, taking what Ishwar just said into consideration, organizations would love to integrate all these different practices, all these different ideologies and operational strategies. There might be instances where some part of departments would focus on lean management and some would on Six Sigma as well. Uh, how can businesses actually, this question is actually for Akshat, how can businesses actually integrate TOC, Lean and Six Sigma together, forming into a comprehensive transformation strategy, and what type of outputs we are expecting out of this integrating approach?
Yeah. Jason, before I answer that question,
Yeah,
since you asked some of the books,
correct.
there is a very interesting article. I'm not recommending a book. There's a very interesting article called Standing on the Shoulders of Giant. Okay, this is written by Dr. Eli Goldratt himself,
Okay.
and it tells about the basic principles of Toyota production system, from where the lean is coming, and the Ford system initially, and then Toyota production system, and this how they are all linked,
Hmm.
and when in what circumstances to use which system. Okay, maybe we can attach the link, or but I also think that this article is an addendum to the book The Goal,
Yeah.
so it will be very nice for the users. Okay, well, so coming to the question on how do we integrate, I think I already touched upon it's not like implementing lean individually or Six Sigma. That's not the idea. The idea is to improve the system, whatever it takes, right? And we are talking about the three methodologies, but there can be anything else also. We have to be clear. So we have to be, that's a step one, I would say, in all our implementations. The step one always, whatever tools we intend to use comes secondary, even TOC comes secondary. First, the idea is, do we know our system? Okay, and how do we define our system, and how do we know what is the system trying to achieve, or what is the goal of the system?
Correct.
Often most of the leaders are not very clearly able to verbalize the goals in a way that everyone understands, right? So we have to be very clear what is the system that we're talking about, what is the goal that they're trying to achieve, and how do you measure that goal, how much of the goal units they have actually achieved. So the idea is to maximize the system's performance, or maximize the goal units in a way as efficiently as possible, right? So that's step one, which has to be very, very clearly defined. Now, step two, once you have defined the system, you have to know what are the entities that are working within the system. So typically in a production, in a company, it could be manufacturing, purchase, finance, sales, HR, or legal. All of them are working towards achieving not their own goals, but to achieve the goal of the system as a whole, right? So we have to know which of these entities, how they are interacting, and where the flow of the system is getting stuck the most, right? And that is the area. Once you've identified, that's a step two. Once you've identified, then you put all your lean methodologies or Six Sigma methodologies or TOC tools on that area to maximize that. Right, I'll give you an analogy. Maybe I'll give you one simple example and then one actual real life implementation that we did. So, if I have to think of the analogy, imagine a race, okay? But this race is not an individual race, this is a team race. So, each team, let's say, have four members, and there are three teams. Now, the team will win when all the four members of the team crosses the finish line, right? So from the starting to finish, but all the four members within the team has to cross the finish. That's when the race ends for that team, right? Now, if out of the four members, if one is the slowest, so the effort of the other three should be how can you strengthen the third member to run faster? Because the A, B, let's say A, B, C, and D are the members. A, B, and D can run fast than C. So A, B, and D should help C to run faster. Otherwise, if C continues to run at the slowest rate or at its own pace, that's the speed of the whole team. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to first define what is the race, which is what is the system that we're talking about. How do we measure the output of the system? And then we have to define which is the entity which is controlling the output of the system. Okay, in this case, C is controlling the total lead time for the race, right?
Yes.
So and then put all the thought process, all the techniques of Six Sigma if that is required, or a lean methodology if that is required in that C to gain maximum out of it. Now, in one of the implementation, and this was like something which remains with me since it happened at the very start of my implementation. This company is based in China, okay, and the main business of this company was to uh, sell earth moving equipments. They were the dealers of some of the large earth moving equipments, and the way they used to sell is they used to finance those equipments and then also collect the money. So the main business is more like a financing business where they become the guarantor and they loan to the customer. So the main objective was to collect the money, whatever they have given, to collect the money. So when we started the implementation, the way constraint of the system was defined was the ability of the agents who are collecting to collect the money. The capacity of the agent to go and collect the money is my constraint. So if I have more capacity of the agents, I can collect more money. That's how the constraint was. And that's where the problem lies. Okay, the constraint, we realize that that is not the constraint, but the constraint is the ability of the customer to pay back the EMIs.
Yeah.
It's a big difference. Because if you define the constraint as the capacity of the agents, then all your attention is towards improving the capacity of the agents.
Right.
But if you define the constraint as ability of the customer to pay, then you have to find ways to how to increase the customer's ability to pay so that you get the money. And then the whole philosophy, whole approach changes because of that, right? So that's the power of defining the system and knowing the system's goal and measurements and knowing the constraint, because the entire effort of the management can go haywire if you don't have these two rights. And then of course you put all the tools and then you that's how it gets integrated in one coherent ways.
Right. And I think there would be a lot of challenges in these implementations. Personally, in your experience, a lot of challenges would be there. Any kind of challenges which you have faced, and some strategies you have applied to overcome these challenges?
Yeah, see, challenges are always there, Jason. Any change, even at the personal level, right? We all know that eating healthy is good, or doing exercise is good, or discipline to read is very important. But how many of us are able to do it consistently over a long period?
Right.
And now, here, when we go for a transformational change, we are talking about changing the organization, right? So it's a huge challenge. And if you ask me, there are methodologies of how do we go about it step by step. But the biggest thing that in my mind that comes to me as change is, any person are not resistant to change. We all change, but then why is it that certain change we make and certain change we don't make? So
Right.
what I've learned is there is two sides of the needs. One side is there is benefit of changing. We all talk about it. but then there is a benefit of not changing also. Okay, I'm at my comfort zone, why should I change, right? There's a benefit out of it. Now I cannot say that my comfort zone is not important and only the benefit of change is more important. Okay, maybe benefit of change is important for the company, but for me my comfort is more important.
Right.
So we have to, and there is no other option, we have to find ways to resolve this conflict. Okay, we have to find ways to effort to make the change versus effort or the problem of not making the change. We have to align these two together, right? So all of this has to be, the conflict has to be resolved. Now the problem is each person has their own conflicts. You cannot as an organization start solving all the conflicts, then you are completely defocused.
Right.
So idea is, how can you connect all of these conflicts into one conflict, and we achieve this. We only have one conflict for the whole organization, and then we only solve that one conflict. That gives tremendous amount of focus, wherein all other things not required, just solve this. And if you solve this, then you get multiple leveraged benefits. So challenges, Jason, are many. There are conflict that keeps emerging, and you have to spend time to figure out why that conflict exists and solve it. It cannot be saying always using pressure that no, you must change, otherwise you are out of the company. That doesn't work, because the new person comes, he's also in the same conflict.
Right. Right. Ishwar, would you like to add something here on the change management part? I know this is very near to your heart, and you would often talk about this change management. You would like to add on to this?
Yeah, I agree. It's a very challenging kind of a situation, and there are very several common challenges, especially when something new comes and employees are hesitant, or some kind of awareness needs to be there. They're hesitant to adopt the new ways of working. They have their own biases in their mind, and a challenge also could be in terms of insufficient training or lack of understanding of the new methodologies, what are prevalent, or people may even think that the fear of losing their their significance or importance in the within the organization, it can. And sometimes, their past experience when the change had occurred, it could have led into poor execution or misapplication. With that kind of experience also, there could have been their past experience also plays an important role. But more or less, additionally, what I feel is lack of leadership and support, or clear directive coming in from the top management, or the efforts are maybe in siloed thinking, or preventing from cross departmental collaboration. We've seen many times whenever any implementation happens, there is a lot of resistance coming in from the cross functional departments. They don't collaborate with you. They're not transparent enough to share the details and other things. So to overcome these obstacles, organizations should more or less, they have to focus on effective communication. I think that's the most important element, to have more effective communication, to explain why this change it is required. Eventually, the change is going to happen whether you like it or not. But
Yeah.
then you have to explain the benefits. Rightly said by Akshat, the benefits are manifold, how it's going to transform your life or your workplace. Uh, you are going to get the benefits, and the goals, I mean, the benefits could be through giving them more awareness, adequate training, and involve everybody. Every team member has to be involved in this and get their buy-in. Once you get the buy-in from the members within the team, then which is propelled from the top management, then it becomes the commitment. You buy the commitment to drive the transformation. Once you buy that, then setting expectations becomes easier, and then you can mobilize your resources accordingly, and you can also have a very healthy cross-functional collaboration, so that you can march, or you'll have a proper platform to march towards achieving those common goals by adopting all this methodology, so that consistently you can make the progress, and you can see how it is going to enable that initiative.
Yeah. So, Akshat, would you like to throw some light on some case studies in terms of successful implementation, or would you like to stick on to the earlier China example, or would you like to share some more examples on TOC
Yeah, yeah.
implementation?
Well, I can share the case study, but when Ishwar spoke, some thoughts came. So let me complete that thought. Okay, it's
Yeah, yeah,
always you
yeah.
can always use. Very interesting point Ishwar mentioned was to get the buy-in. To make any change, it's important that I am completely bought in
Mm,
about what this change will lead to. Okay,
mm,
so in TOC, we have a framework for getting this buy-in, which is called six layers of resistance. Okay, I'll quickly touch upon these 6 points.
okay.
And any buy-in has to follow these six layers in sequence, right? First thing is I am assuming that Y change is given. So Y change is not part of the layer that is given. We know we have to change. But first we have to agree on the problem. What is the problem? Often when a change is proposed to solve a particular problem, the other guy don't even see that problem. For them, the problem is something else. So what is the problem is the first layer that needs to be agreed upon. We cannot go to the second layer without defining or agreeing on the problem, not just defining. Second is once the problem is defined or agreed, everyone will have their own way to solve that problem.
Mm,
Someone will say, let's put IT solution. Someone will say, let's add more resources. Someone will say, do more training. And TOC will say something else.
mm,
So the second step on buy-in is to agree on the direction of the solution. Okay, what direction I want to take. That's the second layer. Once that second layer is agreed upon, and then only we can go to the third one, is the third layer, which is defining the details of the solution, that how we will actually, what we will actually do. Often when we talk about a change, we jump to solution three, the step three. We don't do first and second, where the problem, and then we end up not getting the buy-in, however good or detailed the solution is defined. The fourth layer, just defining the details is not enough. Fourth layer is once you define the solution, the other guy will have some obstacles in doing that. Suppose the solution tells that this guy should run at the rate of 10 kilometers per hour, but this guy's speed is 5 kilometers per hour. There are obstacles. I can't do it, even though you tell me in so detailed steps. And so these obstacles has to be resolved. Then this solution will lead to some negative effects, which the team will know that okay, if you do this, yes, you can achieve these good things, but these negative things will also come along with it. So those negative things has to be dealt with. These are called negative branch reservations for the solutions that use that anything is any change with that is proposed. The sixth one is where the fear comes. I understand everything, but still I am scared. That's where the pressure or directive from the management comes. Directly jumping to step 3 or step 6 often does not lead to enough buy-in, which is what Ishwar said, that we have to have buy-in. Without the buy-in, change is not possible.
great. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was, I wanted to ask you also in terms of Akshat, in terms of some case studies which you would like to share with our audience today in
Yeah, yeah.
terms of TOC implementation.
I was thinking of what case study to share. One which came to my mind immediately when I was thinking was this was a company which was based in Calcutta. They in India. They make LED lights, right? So they have done a lot of investments. This was a growing company, new brand, 4 or 5 years down company. They came to us with a problem statement that see, I am growing every year. I am growing 30-40%, but as I grow, my receivables keep increasing at the same rate. Okay, so I keep adding my distributors or dealers, and as I keep adding my dealers distributors, I grow. But then they don't pay back, so my receivables keep increasing. Now I have a target to grow from 100 crore to 1000 crores INR, right? And I can do that. I know how to do that. But if I continue to keep get generating receivables due at the same rate, I am going to fall off my own weight. This was the problem statement. I mean, not defined in so clear words, but this is how we agreed when, and they all agreed that yeah, this is the problem statement. Now, the approach that they were trying to do is again, having the problem is I'm not getting right dealers. Let's get good dealers who can supply and pay back the money. All those were the thoughts that management were having. When we went, we identified that the problem is not happening because of that, but the problem lies somewhere else, which is the way they are planning the whole system. Okay, so they were doing forecast as to there are many lighting products, not just one light. There are many lighting products. So how much to produce what, they will forecast, and forecast when they do something will sell more than what is required, so they will have loss of sales. Something will not sell more, right? Now, what do you do with something what is not selling and you have produced? So you push, you give the schemes, you push. So the dealers will buy because of the scheme, they are getting good price. But then when the dealer buys, doesn't mean that they are able to sell it to the retailers and retailers are able to sell it to the end consumer, right? Eventually, end consumer has to buy, then only it's actual sales. So, but the product is not selling well, so end consumers are actually not buying it. Now, you have pushed, you have got your primary, but then if the secondary and tertiaries are not happening, then how can the dealers pay back? They will have to wait for retailers to pay, and retailers will pay only when the consumer buys it. So, dealers does not have the ability to pay. Now you keep doing the forecast, you keep producing non-moving goods, and you keep pushing that non-moving goods, and you keep increasing the receivables. So how do you really come out with the forecast way of working? And how do you manage the whole supply chain? That was the whole implementation about. Right now, in that implementation we did use some of the Six Sigma processes, Six Sigma methodologies, because some of the machines which was giving a lot of defects, we had to work on that. So where we use Six Sigma, we use some of the TOC major methodologies we use was subordinating. Okay, subordinating to the market as a constraint. We want to entire supply chain has to subordinate to what the actual consumptions are happening. So we have to find ways to actually know what the consumers are buying, and then trigger the raw material purchase and production in accordance with that. So we put certain buffers at certain key strategic points, and we ensured that we reduce the lead time of supply drastically from one node to another, thereby reducing the need for forecast, right? So when we did all of that, and here since we use Six Sigma and some of the value stream mappings also we used to know where the flows are getting stuck. So it was a very good way where we used all the tools to the extent where we wanted to use, not like like 5S we did, but we only did first 2S. That was enough for us, 2S. So like that we implemented, and we were able to bring the company into EBITDA positive within 4 months of implementation. So in last 3-4 years, they were making losses. They were growing, but they were making losses. So we were able to bring it EBITDA positive in 4 months, and without increasing any receivables at all. The receivables was going down, in fact, right? And the inventories, the working capital was going down. Receivables was going down, inventory was going down, and payables was maintained. So their working capital requirement was well within control. So that's the turnaround of the company that happened in just 4 months, right? And then they continued the journey in the sales. How do you increase the sales now? How do you how do you keep improving the ROI of the distributors? Because distributors are there for ROI. So all of those implementations continued, but the big change happened in that 4 month where the supply chain got aligned to the end consumption.
This is a classic example of integrating multiple
Yes,
strategies.
yes, yes. Great.
Amazing. Amazing to know that. And hopefully the stakeholders of those companies are in a very positive note by now. And
Yeah. It's going great. In fact, in this implementation, one of the success factor, I don't know, I think we touched upon this, but one of the key success factor was the champion who was driving this initiative was the owner of the company himself.
wonderful.
So he was sitting in all the meetings and making sure he understands what we are saying. He understands that what are the obstacles team is facing. So that commitment from the organization was tremendous. And another interesting thing, what he did was he stopped all other initiatives. So no other change initiatives to be done till this initiative is completed, right? So that level of commitment, when it was there, the entire team was focused. So there was no delay in discussions or data requirements or all of that thing what is required in typical implementation. So that was the also one of the reason why it went so fast.
Absolutely. Okay, so that was a case study on TOC implementation for our audience to follow. Uh, Before concluding the session, let me ask Eshwar, before going into Akshat, the measuring part of these uh, principles or these strategies. How can organizations effectively measure the impact of these initiatives like Six Sigma or TOC on their overall performance?
Thank you, Jason. I mean, every organization can effectively measure the impact of whether it is be Lean or Six Sigma or TOC. The initiatives are by tracking the performance metrics, whether it is for Lean, by monitoring the improvements, maybe in terms of your cycle time, your inventory levels, or your lead times, and your cost savings, your customer satisfaction. It could be on all these parameters. So you have a defined performance metrics. Similarly, for Six Sigma, when you look at the key metrics would include like your defect rates, your process variation, which Akshat had talked initially about, on your work in progress, WIP, your inventory levels, to measure how well these constraints are addressed and how your flow is optimized. And additionally, how is it actually translating or tracking your financial performance? Like it could be profitability, it could be on return on investment. I think the case which he had referred to, and most importantly, the employee and the customer feedback that helps gauge a broader impact on overall performance. And these days, there's more focus even on sustainability.
Right. Akshat, would you like to add something here on the performance, on the metrics part?
Yeah. Very nicely said. Like, each of these actions, what we are taking, has to have its way to know whether this action is giving the desired results,
Yeah.
and all those metrics what Ishwar mentioned. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned, it's about the system.
Okay.
So if you are able to reduce the defects, great. But what is the effect on the system, right? So eventually, at the end of the day, we measure the three parameters.
Mm.
Anything what we do, it can be anything. I mean, of course, we'll measure the defects, we'll measure the takt time, lead time, everything will be measured. But then all of this has to show systems benefit, which
Correct.
is measured in just three parameters. Okay. First, we call it as throughput. Okay. The throughput is the revenue minus all the variable cost that goes in. So throughput has to increase.
Okay.
And as the throughput is increasing, my investments in my inventories should go down. So my ratio T by I should keep on improving or sustain at a high level.
Yeah.
And at the same time, my operating expenses that I am making should not increase at the same rate as how my T is increasing. So my T by OE should increase. So T, the rate at which I am generating my T, which is throughput, the and my T by I and T by OE. If these three parameters are improving, all the actions that I'm taking is right. Okay, I'm pretty sure. So these three are the core measures for us. Of course, all other actions we take, we measure those actions specifically in advance. So, yeah.
Okay. So those are some of the measurement part, how we get optimum results by measuring these, the impact of these strategies. So we were talking today on different methodologies like Lean Six Sigma and Theory of Constraints. I believe that these are not so much detailed discussions, but kind of a touch base on how these systems function. Thank you, Akshat, and thank you, Akshat, for joining in today's call and discussing on the TOC elements and some case studies which we shared for the audience to understand to follow. Any concluding remarks from your side on this subject before we wind up today's session?
I think, Jason, it's important to know these tools for any one who's in transformational journey.
Yeah,
Okay, there is no excuse to say that I don't know this. I'm only a lean guy or a TOC guy. No, you have to know everything what is there available, at least capabilities of it, if not details. But you should also, or one should also build the ability to see the system as a whole and identify the lever or the constraining point. Otherwise, we might be improving an area which is not really impacting the system and
right,
then thereby adding more waste.
right. Ishwar, would you like to conclude as well?
Thank you, Jason. I think in today's podcast, it's so interesting. And what we explored is how business transformation strategies like Lean, Six Sigma, and theory of constraints are really revolutionizing the industries. And the key takeaway is that each methodology offers you unique tools and improving your efficiency, quality, and overall performance. That is what I would like to conclude. Thank you.
The funny part is that these are not new techniques, and it has been over the period of years, over the years, and it has been so effective till now in different organizations. And thank you so much, Akshat, for spending so much time with us on discussing these elements. Aishwar, thank you so much. Have a great day.